Welcome to Money, Manifestation, and Business, the podcast that shows you how to use your energy, intention, and consciousness to reprogram your money mindset, unleash a new level of possibility, and create a life and business that lights you up. I'm your host, Jamie Berman, and I invite you to join me each week for a dose of inspiration, coaching, and teachings to help you rewrite your money story, create abundance on your terms, and grow your business in a way that's fully aligned for you. This is going to be so much fun. Let's dive in. Before we dive into today's topic, I want to encourage all of you this week and the weeks, beyond next week, the following, to start looking for evidence in your life of how manifestation works for you. Not only evidence, but more of celebration. This is one of the most incredible practices that you can step into. It's kind of like gratitude, right? Where we start looking for the good in our life. Because what we focus on grows. What we focus on, we get more of, we see more of, and that's what's attracted into our lives. And I will tell you what, one of the easiest ways to start manifesting more into your life is to start appreciating the beauty in your life now, to start feeling grateful for it, to start seeing evidence of magic, whether it's even the smallest thing, right? And to start either doing gratitude practices or an evidence journal or a celebration journal. This practice in and of itself will literally change your life. So I talk about Oprah a lot because I love her. She always says when people ask her like, hey, because she's very into manifestation and obviously she's created an incredible life, incredible career, has impacted so many people. And when people ask her, like, what is your manifestation practice? She has different practices, of course, but she always says at the core, it's my gratitude practice. She said, that's the one thing in my life I have never let go of, and it has changed my life significantly. So I want to encourage all of you to be looking for the beauty in your lives and to start celebrating it. And we can do that in the Facebook group. So I always love doing a hashtag that's like an evidence hashtag, an evidence of the little beautiful moments that you start noticing this week. And it can be big and it can be small. It can be, oh my gosh, I saw the most beautiful rose outside today and I noticed it and I took it in and I stopped and I was present with it for a moment. Or it can be, I attracted 2 new clients this week, right? It doesn't actually matter the size or scale of it, in quotes, right? It's just about starting to notice the beauty in your life. Like that right there is true abundance. That is true wealth. And that is not something that even the richest people in the world do, which is why they don't feel wealthy oftentimes, right? It's why they have everything they could ever want, but they feel empty inside. It's because they haven't cultivated true abundance, true wealth, the inner wealth. And that's the work that I do, right? I really help my clients not only attract more abundance and money into their lives and, to align with their business and create what they're here to create in the world, but also to actually experience it and to feel it and to feel the fulfillment of it. Because that's a completely different practice than just having. Totally different, right? And we have to do both. And in fact, one feeds the other. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I also want to share that, this one thought could change everything for you. This one thought, if you could step into this one thought, right? Yesterday, we talked about how thoughts become things. And if we practice thoughts, they will become real for us. And this thought is manifestation works for me. That one thought can change so much because I think so many of us think, I got to figure out how it works. I got to figure this thing out. And it's actually super simple. And when we think we got to figure it out, we're always looking for more in a different way versus just thinking manifestation works for me. What if my thoughts do become things? What if this is simpler than I'm making it out to be? What if I'm worthy of this? I had one of my clients, Kelsey, who I interviewed on my podcast I think it was about 6 months ago, Kelsey Carter. She's amazing. When she came in and started working with me, she was literally at zero. She had no clients, didn't even have a business, didn't even really know what she wanted to do, just knew she wanted to have a business and she wanted to create more abundance in her life. And she created her business. It's had its evolution. It's now amazing. She's like an incredible human design mentor, coach, and beyond. She's just incredible at human design. And her business has grown a ton, right? So she went from like zero to like, I think last update is like, I'm at 300K. And every time I hear it's like more. So at this point, I'm sure she's beyond that at this point. But one of the things that she said in that podcast episode, as I said, what was it that you practiced your first round working with me? Like, what was it that you dove into and what was your manifestation practice? And she said, honestly, Jamie, it was just believing that manifestation was real. And I started practicing that thought, manifestation is real. And I started looking for evidence of that. And she said that one thought and idea changed my entire life because she said, now I have literally zero doubt that it's real. And she knows how to practice it. So I just want to offer that to all of you because it's a thought that you can choose to take on that will absolutely change the trajectory of your life. So offering that right now. Okay. All right. So day 3, what are we talking about today? Yesterday, we talked about our mindset and our thoughts and the impact that those have on our lives and our belief systems. And today I want to move kind of into the next layer, which is emotions and how our emotions play a role in what we manifest. So we're going to be talking about emotional management around money. And we're going to talk about, so I wrote here, money can trigger all kinds of emotions, fear, anxiety, and even guilt. Learn how to manage these emotions and stay aligned with abundance so you can confidently attract more wealth into your life. That's what we're covering today. So who's it? Because it's such a big piece of the manifestation process. I'm going to stop sharing. I'll probably share a little bit more as I go. So let's talk about why emotions matter. And as I shared yesterday, emotions are the way that the body feels our thoughts. Emotions are the way that our body experiences the stories and the perceptions that we have in life, right? There's no emotion without a story, right? Without a thought that you're thinking or a belief that you're holding. So emotions matter, right? They're tied, they're linked. The thoughts that we think create emotions in our body. And of course, it's, I'm not going to get into like all of that, but that's that at its simplest. And the emotions that we have drive how we show up in life, right? They drive what we do. They're like the thing that motivates the next thing that we do in life. How we are feeling can motivate how we react, how we respond, what kind of habits we have, what our behaviors are, right? What we don't do. So our feelings make all the difference around money and in business. It's so big because it can totally stop us from shining our light, or it can totally like drive us to show up in a huge way and shine our light super brightly. So that's why we want to get to know our emotions around money and around business and start creating some awareness around what's there and process the emotions that we have, begin to understand them, but also learn how to cultivate new emotions that feel more truthful to us, that feel aligned, and that drive us to shine our light as brightly as we can. And when I say shine light as brightly as we can, I mean create the impact that you're here to create, serve the world in the way that you're meant to. And if you're here and you have a business, well, everyone, no matter if you have a business or not, is here to put beauty out into the world, right? But it's like, are you stopping yourself from doing that or not? That's based upon the emotional state you're holding. And many times this is very much habitual, right? Similar to our thought patterns. They're very, very habitual. So we want to start gaining awareness around that, learn about it, learn how to work with it, and it will change everything. Because again, just to go back through, right? It's like our thoughts create our emotions, and then the emotions drive our behaviors. And that's what creates the life that we have. I also think the emotions also like create the synchronicities that happen in our life. It's not always just the actions that create the things in our lives. It's also what is attracted into our lives, right? You've probably noticed when you're in a certain emotional state, right? If you go into a place positive and kind and loving, and you just have this open, expansive energy, you probably notice people treat you differently. I know that for sure. I get free stuff all the time just from being kind and having a positive emotional state that I've learned to practice and cultivate, right? So it's like it attracts in certain things, but it also drives your behavior. So it's huge. And I want you guys to just think about this, right? When you are feeling guilty about money, what do? Right? What happens when you feel guilty about money? You can put it in the chat. What happens when you feel scarce? When you're in scarcity, when you're thinking it's not enough, what do? What do you not do? What happens in your life? What do you attract when you're in scarcity around money? Yeah, you get more of the same. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Nothing, right, Mindy? Totally. We don't do anything from those places. 100%. My energy drains. I isolate. When I'm in scarcity, I shut down. Totally. I stay in scarcity. Yeah, totally. Because there's momentum to emotions too. And when we're in that state for a long time, there's a momentum there. It's a lot easier to stay in the state than it is to get out of it. Yeah, I ignore responsibilities. I get stingy. I get stressed out and manifest things I don't want. Yeah, totally. I mismanage money. Yeah, totally. 100%. Okay. So here's one of the things. Oh, yes. Hoard money and feel afraid to spend it. Totally. 100% when you're in scarcity. So we want to ask ourselves, right? When are those times that we tend to get triggered? Because we can start managing this. We can start working with it. We can actually undo the habit of scarcity or the habit of guilt or the habit of overwhelm or panic or fear. We can undo that, right? And again, it's very similar to the work that we did yesterday in terms of how were those emotions developed? It oftentimes comes from what we saw and what we experienced and what we were taught about it. But we're learning a new way, which is a beautiful thing. It's like we're retraining ourselves around business, around money, and it will change your entire life, right? And like I did this work, I've seen hundreds of people do this work. It takes energy, it takes effort, it takes consistency. You have to actually implement it. You can't just learn it. You have to practice this stuff. But if you do, it will change your life. If you do this for 1 year, it will change the entire trajectory of your life. It not only changes the way you feel, but it also changes what you see in your life. This is what Einstein says, who like literally studied like quantum physics, right? So he wasn't even talking about this from like a manifestation perspective. This is like from a studying quantum physics perspective, but it shows this playing out, right? Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. So match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is philosophy. This is not philosophy. This is physics. So I love that quote, and I've seen how that plays out in my life. And I'm curious, have you all noticed that ever? Have you ever noticed how when you're in a certain frequency, you tend to attract certain things, right? I know for me, for sure. Yeah. Okay. 100%. Totally. And here's the other thing that I think is so important that like, if you've worked with me, you know that I am huge on this, because I also do not think that we cannot have any negative emotions in our human experience. That is not going to happen. We are living a human experience. We are going to have a combination of all the emotions. It's not about repressing those. It's not about pushing them away. It's not about being positive 100% of the time or you're doing something wrong. That is not what I'm saying. It's more so about how do you hold your emotions? How do you experience your emotions? Which emotions do you give into? And which ones do you allow and process and let yourself feel? And the way to get to that place where you can do that is just through awareness of understanding them, right? So again, I'm not saying you're never going to feel disappointment again in your life. Absolutely not. I've experienced so much disappointment. Even there's been lots of things that have happened where I've had to process through disappointment. But it's more about understanding the disappointment and choosing how do you want to relate to that? And what are you going to do from that place, right? How are we going to relate to those emotions that are more challenging? And so that's what I want to go through first is talking about our emotions around money. And then we'll talk about how to also cultivate even more intentional emotions around money. Because even let's say you were just like pretty much negative all day, right? Let's say you have just one of those brains that just goes negative and goes to worst case scenario, and you have a lot of anxiety and there's panic. If you allow it and it's just there, you recognize that this is anxiety, this is what my brain does. But for 10% more a day, you cultivate intentional emotions. That in and of itself is enough to make massive changes in your life. Incredible changes. And one of my favorite manifestation authors is Mike Dooley. And he says, the reason that is because our positive thoughts and our positive vibrations, which we could call it aligned thoughts or aligned vibrations. Sometimes I don't like to get so much into positive and negative. It's more of like those expansive emotions, those heart-centered emotions that we feel aligned with are 10,000 times more powerful than any negative thought we have. Because I have stupid, irrational fears that come up and I'm like, my brain is doing this again, but I'm afraid. Like, I get those things and I have to process them through. I have to be with them. But if you can just increase the amount of intentional thinking, intentional emotions that you feel on a daily basis, it can change everything. So I want to say that because a lot of times what I've seen is, I'm feeling this negative state. And then we add negativity onto it. Now we're worried about being worried, right? And we don't want to do that. It's like, of course you're worried. You're a human. Okay. So it's not about that. Yeah, totally. Because how many of you all have manifested something amazing and you've been having a human experience? One of my clients in the movement yesterday was like, I had my biggest month ever. And I don't even get it because it was a really challenging month. And I said, well, what thoughts have you been practicing around money? And she's like, I've been practicing that clients are coming to me, that money is consistent. And I've been feeling that in my body. But meanwhile, life is happening. I said, welcome to manifestation. We're still going to have a human experience, y'all, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, right? We don't want to get rid of that. Okay. Let's talk about reprogramming our emotions around money, those triggering emotions like scarcity, like guilt, like overwhelm, right? Because I don't want you to be overwhelmed about those emotions, but I do think we can learn from them. And I do think we can reduce the amount of time that we're in them intentionally by reprogramming the habits. So here is how I have found it to be very, very helpful to shift the way that I feel about money, right? It's in similar to yesterday where we got to shift perspective, right? Like yesterday I was talking about how it's not a pie. It is literally like an infinite source of, it's an infinite tool, an infinite source, an infinite resource that we have available, right? It's abundant. So shifting that, it's also not something that determines your worth. It's not something that makes you feel scarce. It also doesn't make you feel abundant, right? Money's not going to do that. So I'm going to dive into that further, but the way that's really, really helped me see it in a new way is to see that money is just a neutral tool. Money only has charge to it if we make it mean something. So it's similar to like a hammer. I put a picture of a hammer here because if you think about it, a hammer isn't good or bad. It's a tool, right? Like You can use a hammer for good. You can go and create something beautiful. You can build a home using a hammer, right? You can fix things using a hammer. How you use the tool determines if it's good or if it's bad. You can also use a hammer to hurt people, to destroy things. So the hammer in and of itself is totally neutral, just like money. It doesn't make you a certain person. If someone gave you a hammer, this tool, you want to be like, oh my God, I have a hammer. I've got 5 hammers. I'm a bad person because hammers can do bad things. No, right? Just like money. Money can do beautiful things, and it can also, be used for not so great things. It depends on what you choose to use it for. So this idea that money's good or money's bad is just wrong. Money is neutral. It is a tool, and how you choose to use it determines, are you going to use it for good or are you going to use it for whatever, right? So this was really helpful in that I stopped seeing it as some big, important kind of status symbol that determined if you're successful or worthy, and really starting to see it and use it as simply a tool and asking myself, how do I want to use this tool in my life? If it is just a tool, that's all. It's a resource. It's a tool that I can utilize. How do I want to relate with that? Right? Doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't determine your emotional state, right? A hammer is not going to make you feel scarcity. A hammer isn't going to make you feel unworthy. A hammer is not going to make you feel panicked, just like money can't. It's only whenever you start telling yourself stuff like it's not enough, it'll never be enough, I'm not worthy of it, I'm not someone who can create this money, right? So replace money with hammer and see what the difference is, and see how money really is just neutral. It's just a tool. It doesn't actually determine how you feel. It's the stories about it that you took on that are determining your emotional state around it. Okay. So again, another thing with reprogramming your emotions around money is that the emotions we experience around money simply come back to the way we are thinking about it. Again, money is a neutral tool. Not good, not bad, can be used for good, can be used for bad. It's just neutral. It's just like paper. And actually, most of money is just numbers in an account. It's not even actually real, which is wild, right? Most of the money on this planet is not in cash at all, right? It's not even physical. And it continues to grow every single day. It's a wild thing. So it's really just an energy. But it's a tool. That's all it is. And it cannot determine your emotional experience, right? So here's the other thing is you can choose new thoughts, new beliefs, new perspectives on purpose to begin generating new feelings about money. So if you don't want to feel scarce about it anymore, if you don't want to feel unworthy of it, if you don't want to feel guilty, you have to change the story in your perception, in your mind, right? Going back to day 2. If you wanted to have a new emotional state, we have to think about money in a new way. And we're already starting to do that this week in a big way. So think about how you want to react. So actually, let me ask you this. Okay. In the chat, or well, no, you don't have to put it in the chat, but I want you all to think about a circumstance that tends to trigger you around money, right? Maybe there's something like looking at your bank account, you feel scarcity. Maybe it's when you talk about paying the bills every month that you start to feel an emotion. Maybe it's looking at how many clients you got this week or what your business numbers were. Think about a certain circumstance that tends to trigger you emotionally into more of an unhelpful state around money. And I want all of you to think of something specific where you tend to get triggered and start considering, maybe there's a new way to think about that. Maybe I can slow down and actually prepare myself ahead of time and think the next time that happens, how do I want to react? How do I want to think on purpose in that moment? What emotional state do I want to practice? And by doing this, every single time you go in with experience that circumstance, practicing a new way, this is how you can reprogram your relationship with money. So I have done this in many different ways. One big one is I used to get very triggered if unexpected bills came, which I tend to get a lot, right? I tend to get unexpected bills. I have a home, actually I have two homes. So we get lots of unexpected things. Hey, the microwave broke in the condo. Hey, right now, like we're doing so much work on our house and always getting unexpected bills around the pool or the hot tub. And we have an older house. So we're always getting unexpected bills. And I used to get so triggered by this, right? I'd go into scarcity. I'd get so frustrated. But I started practicing, thanks to Mike Dooley, who I'm going to shout out again, a new way. And I started saying, thank God I can pay for this. Thank God I'm rich. Thank God I have the abundance to have this thing and to pay for it. Thank God I'm rich. Thank God I'm rich, right? And I would practice that over and over, even before I believed it at all. It was just a new mantra every time an unexpected bill, thank God I'm rich, right? And then every time I would get, any kind of money that came in, I would start practicing gratitude. Not that that was triggering, but it allowed me to get into more gratitude around the money that was coming in. Every time I would go and pay at the grocery store, I would say, thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful for this abundance that I'm spreading. And what's so fun is that I have the abundance to pay for this. And then that creates a job for the person working at the grocery store. And I just did a little short blessing of abundance instead of, oh God, more money coming out. Groceries are getting expensive, right? So think about the little things that you tend to get, even if it's just a little triggered around money, and consider a new way of thinking about it because it will change everything. And this is how you can reprogram those emotions. All right. Okay. I want to see what y'all are saying. Yeah. My dad asked me about my money situation and it triggered me totally. So what you could consider is what is a new way that I'd want to practice if someone asks me about my money situation? Maybe the thought is, it's fantastic. It's great, right? I am tuned into the energy of abundance. And no matter what the number is, it's okay. You can still think that thought. I'm abundant. It's going great, right? It's going great no matter what. So we can start thinking about what's a new way I want to tell this story, or I'm just getting started, right? Maybe it's something like, you know what? It's not where I want it to be now, but I'm just getting started. You just wait. You ask me 1 year from now, it's going to be so different. Maybe something like that feels more truthful. Yeah. This is a good one. I'm just looking at what triggers. So Anna says, other people's wealth. When friends have more, I'm jealous and think they are better than me, more worthy. Ooh, Anna. Okay. So I actually did a podcast episode on the feeling of envy and jealousy. And I'll tell you, because I used to have this same thing, especially living here in LA, whenever I was working retail, literally living paycheck to paycheck. And I would go to Venice Beach and see all these people who had cool beach houses and they were young. And I'm like, what in the world? They must have rich parents. They must have trust funds, blah, blah, blah. And I would get so jealous. And I remember learning this shift that changed so much for me. And it was, anytime you're jealous or envious, it's because you're seeing something that you have within yourself that you are not owning, right? So if you see other people's wealth and you get triggered or you get jealous, it's because you have that power within you to create the same thing as them, but it's something you've been shutting down. You've been keeping it dormant, right? You've been pushing it away. You've been not owning that part of yourself, which is the only reason it's triggering. So you can say and recognize that's what's happening, that is actually you have that in you. That's why you're triggered. And that is the only reason. So your opportunity here is to start owning that part in you and to maybe learn from them. I wonder what their thoughts are. I wonder what they're owning within themselves that I'm not owning, that I can choose to own, but I can learn from them. It's been super helpful around jealousy for me. So thank you so much for bringing that forward, because I think it's probably helpful for anyone. And if you want to dive deeper into it, I did a whole podcast episode on it. My podcast is called Money, Manifestation, and Business. And it was just a couple weeks ago. So just scroll back and look at the episode on envy. Okay, so practicing emotional abundance. Now, I want to talk a bit about emotional abundance because I think a lot of us think that we need money, we need to be rich, we need to be hitting our goals in order to feel abundant. But that is the lie. That's the illusion. And that's actually what's keeping you from creating abundance and creating the actual money, is that you're in scarcity, waiting for money in order to feel abundant, right? But it doesn't work that way. That's energetically not how things work. That is not how we manifest. We cannot manifest abundance from scarcity. Because, like you all have already shared in the comments, when you're in scarcity, you don't do much, right? Or you get really clingy, or you try to, cut back or get in your head or don't do anything, don't make good choices. It doesn't work. So the way to attract more wealth is actually the opposite. It's to practice abundance first. And I call this feeling first, right? We have to create the emotion that we think money is going to give us before we have the money and live into that emotional state. So here are some helpful tips around this, right? As I shared, the emotions we experience around money simply come back to the way we are thinking about it, right? So we need to create a new story that creates a new emotion for us, right? And you get to choose new thoughts, new beliefs, new perspectives on purpose to begin generating new feelings about money. This, again, is just a choice. It just comes back to intention and practice. Now, I underlined this one because it's important. Like I said, you don't need more money to feel abundant, safe, worthy, successful. These are emotions that are generated by the stories we tell in our lives. And you have access to those emotions now. And if you don't start practicing those, money isn't going to give them to you. They're not. I mean, you've probably even seen in some of the coaching that I've done, even this week, as of yesterday, right? Where it's like I'm making 100K a month and I feel like it's not enough, right? And that's just because we have to come back and lean back into the practice of generating emotional abundance. And that's true wealth, honestly. Okay, so the myth is we think money is going to make us feel a certain way. The truth is, what attracts the money is feeling that way before the money is there. Practicing that emotional state now, living from that place now. Now, is this the easiest thing in the world to do? No, it's an intentional practice. It is literally like going to the gym. You have to do your reps, right? Our brain is a muscle. We got to do reps to build it up, to create these new neural pathways, to create this as a habitual state of being. So you're going to have to put your reps in, but it's totally possible and it is worth doing, because we always think, well, once I have money, then I'll feel that way. But that doesn't happen. And so many of you probably know, because you probably have more money than you've had maybe in the past. Do you feel super rich? Do you feel really abundant? If not, it's because you're not practicing that emotional state, because money can't give it to you, right? And money, I'm not saying is, it's a wonderful thing to have more money. We have more conveniences, we have more power, right? We're able to actually use money for positive, good things in the world that can create so many wonderful things, but it's not going to create your emotional state, right? So helpful to recognize. And it is let me just put this here. It's in feeling first. That's the key to manifesting, right? So I want you all to think about that. What are you going to commit to feeling before your manifestation is here, right? That Einstein quote, match the energy and the frequency to that of which you want. You cannot be in scarcity and attract abundance. You got to be in abundance to attract abundance, right? Or at least practicing abundance, 10% more every single day, right? 10% more than you have been to attract more abundance. That's the beauty of it. So what are the feelings that help you attract money? I want to see the chat blowing up with the feelings that you think are aligned with the frequency of money. And I'm going to stop the share. Ease, 100%. I couldn't agree more. excitement, gratitude, 100%. Sarah says, for me, feeling is always associated with receiving. When I'm in a state of receiving, beautiful, 100%. The feeling of receiving, relationships, joy, freedom, relief, security, intention, happiness, enoughness, expansiveness, joy, love, safety, attitude. Yep. Playful. Abundance is my birthright. Yes, it is, Felicia. Healthy, excited, happy, and secure, focused, joy. Beautiful. 100%. Another one that I want to add that I don't think I've seen here is like, for me, it's like faith, it's trust, it's faith, it's knowing, right? Those are big for me. It's the faith that it's all working out and that even if I can't see it, it's happening, it's knowing, it's done. Those have been really, really powerful for me, along with abundance and gratitude and joy and ease. So I love this. So you all know what your opportunity to practice is. And now your brain might be saying, wait, that's too easy. Making money has to be hard. I can't just feel ease and attract more money. I want you to consider that you might be wrong about that, right? And that you've probably been trying hard for a long time. How has that been working out? Right? Because that was my brain. Like, it can't be that easy. And I'm like, wait a minute. I think I've tried hard for a long time. I think I've tried to muscle my way through for a long time. And what's that getting me? It's getting me paycheck to paycheck. I've been feeling scarcity for a long time. That's not working. What if you don't have to feel bad in order to attract money? What if the lighter it is, the easier it is to attract money? What if the more fun I have, the more money I make? What an interesting concept. That was so different from what I had tried in the past. So I really had to go on this like courageous experiment, right? Of like, what if I just let this be easy? And I will tell you what, making money is so much easier than I thought it would be. And it's only in those moments where I get back into that hard and get back into the hustle that it like stops things and it stops working. So are you all willing to try out an experiment, right? An experiment with this. Maybe it doesn't have to be so hard. Maybe it doesn't have to be awful in order to work. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope this episode is something that you'll be able to add to your manifestation toolbox to come back to when you need a little extra motivation. If you like what you've heard today and want to take it deeper, you've got to come check out my signature coaching program, the Money Manifestation Movement. It's the place where you'll not only learn manifestation, but you'll begin to live it alongside me and an amazing community of like-minded entrepreneurs doing this work together. Head on over to jamieberman.com to learn more.